Sagittarius, the places that are silently draining your energy. Sagittarius, have you been coming home lately feeling strangely exhausted, even on days that weren't particularly demanding? You didn't climb mountains or run endless miles, yet your body feels weighed down, your eyes heavy, your spirit dull. You might sit in silence wondering, what's wrong with me? But nothing is wrong with you. Something around you is quietly siphoning your energy, stealing light from the very fire that makes you who you are. You Sagittarius are a child of movement and meaning. You draw life from freedom, color, laughter, and truth. But lately that flame feels dimmed. The joy that once came so naturally has been replaced by irritation, fatigue, or indifference. These are not random moods, they are warnings. Certain environments in your life are no longer compatible with your essence. You've been trying to thrive in spaces designed for survival, not creation. Your soul is whispering for you to notice what your body already knows. Some places aren't meant for you anymore. They drain your vitality drop by drop until you begin to mistake dullness for stability. But you were not born to live halfway. This message is your invitation to wake up, to reclaim your sacred fire, and to remember that the world doesn't need a smaller Sagittarius. It needs the one who burns bright without apology. If this already resonates, breathe deeply, open your heart and stay. Like, share, or subscribe, not as a ritual, but as a declaration that you're ready to take your energy back. Gate 1: the space where you shrink. Sagittarius, your spirit was never designed for confinement. You are ruled by Jupiter, the planet of expansion, freedom, and exploration. You thrive where there's laughter, honesty, and open air, where curiosity can stretch its wings. But lately you found yourself walking into rooms where you instinctively pull your energy back, as though something in the air warns you. Don't be too much. Maybe it's your workplace, a certain family home, or a group that used to feel safe. You step inside and something shifts. You lower your voice, temper your laughter, minimize your ideas. You pretend to fit in, but inside you're shrinking. Every time you do this, Sagittarius, a piece of your life force drains away. It's not obvious at first, it happens quietly. You leave the space feeling heavy, disconnected, or oddly anxious. You tell yourself you're just tired, that everyone feels this way. But your body knows the truth. The tightening in your chest, the tension in your shoulders, the shallow breath. These are warning signals. Your intuition is telling you that you're standing in a place hostile to your authentic energy. I once spoke to a Sagittarius man who said he always left meetings feeling inexplicably small. His ideas were often ignored until someone else repeated them. When he spoke with passion, people called him too intense. Eventually he began holding back. Smiling less, dreaming less, speaking less. Over time, he lost touch with the very enthusiasm that had made him magnetic. It wasn't that he'd changed. He had simply stayed too long in spaces allergic to his brilliance. Sagittarius, you cannot flourish where you must apologize for your joy. You cannot create where you are required to dim your light to make others feel comfortable. The places that force you to shrink are quietly killing your radiance. And the longer you stay, the easier it becomes to confuse survival with belonging. Ask yourself, when you walk into certain spaces, do you feel your posture change? Does your voice soften? Do you censor your excitement because you fear being misunderstood? That's not humility, it's self-erasure. And every time you silence your truth to maintain peace, you make a silent trade. Authenticity for acceptance. But peace built on suppression is not peace. It's fatigue disguised as control. You've always known this deep down. That restless feeling that grows when you stay too long in the wrong places. It's your inner compass warning you that your soul is suffocating. You were not born to decorate cages. You were born to explore the open landscape of possibility. When you repeatedly shrink yourself to fit in, you send a message to the universe. I am not ready to receive more. But when you stand tall, when you risk being fully yourself, even if it makes others uncomfortable, you send a different message. I am ready to live in alignment. And alignment, Sagittarius, is the natural habitat of your power. So take inventory of your environments. Notice where your energy drops the moment you arrive. Notice the rooms where your light flickers instead of expands. These places are not just neutral backdrops. They are active participants in your life force. Some nurture you. Others feed on you. The more honest you are about which is which, the faster your energy will return. If you've been telling yourself that you must endure these spaces out of duty or practicality, remember this. Staying small never protects you. It only delays your freedom. The world doesn't need a dimmed Sagittarius. It needs your full warmth, your unfiltered humor, your untamed creativity. Your presence is medicine, but medicine loses potency when diluted. This first gate asks you to stop betraying yourself for belonging. The right places will never ask you to quiet your joy. They will amplify it. The wrong ones will drain you silently until you mistake exhaustion for normalcy. Choose wisely, Sagittarius. Your fire was never meant to flicker in corners. It was born to illuminate the world. Gate to the spaces cloaked in envy. Sagittarius, your light has always been both your blessing and your burden. You don't just walk into a room. You change its temperature. Your laughter expands, your words inspire, and your presence pulls people toward you like gravity. But not everyone who stands near your fire comes to be warmed. Some come to absorb. Some come to dim it. And they do it not with cruelty, but with subtle comments, disguised concern, and quiet comparisons that chip away at your confidence. These are the spaces filled with envy dressed as care. The kind of environment where people say they only want what's best for you, but somehow, after every interaction, you feel smaller. You leave second-guessing yourself. Was I too much? Was I bragging? Should I tone it down next time? That inner erosion doesn't happen by accident. It's psychological theft. These places train you to distrust your own brilliance. Sagittarius, you've probably experienced this more than once. You share good news and someone replies, "Don't get ahead of yourself," or "Be careful not to make others jealous." You talk about a dream and they say, "Maybe be more realistic." They cloak their envy in politeness, but your intuition feels the sting beneath the sugar. You start to wonder if your joy is offensive, if your success is a threat, if perhaps your natural enthusiasm needs tempering. But no, dear one, your light is not the problem. Their unhealed insecurities are. These spaces are dangerous because they make you question the purity of your own motives. You start to internalize their projections. Your victories shrink. Your laughter becomes guarded. You begin performing smallness as an act of compassion. But you can't protect people from the brightness they refuse to develop within themselves. Their discomfort is not your responsibility. I once spoke with a Sagittarius artist who said she stopped sharing her paintings online because each time she did, someone would message her, saying things like, "You're lucky you have time for hobbies," or "You're really putting yourself out there, huh?" At first she brushed it off. But over time she began to post less, paint less, dream less. Until one day she realized she wasn't protecting her peace. She was burying her gift. Sagittarius, the world needs your fire, not your filter. When you lower your frequency to make others comfortable, you betray your purpose. Your energy is meant to provoke movement, not appease mediocrity. Envy disguised as concern is one of the most insidious thieves of joy, because it makes you complicit in your own dimming. It convinces you that shrinking is empathy, but empathy that requires self-erasure is manipulation. When you feel that subtle drain after being around certain people, pay attention. Your body always tells the truth. Do you feel heavy after their advice? Do you start to justify your achievements or hide them behind false modesty? That heaviness is your intuition whispering, "This is not safety, it's sabotage." You don't owe your light to those who fear it. And you certainly don't need to apologize for your authenticity. There's a sacred humility in acknowledging your gifts, and a sacred arrogance in pretending you don't have them. Sagittarius, you were never meant to live halfway between apology and confidence. You were meant to walk fully in your truth, radiant and unashamed. It's time to release the guilt of being seen. When you rise, not everyone will clap, but your growth isn't a group project. You're not responsible for who feels triggered by your evolution. Their reaction reveals their readiness, not your righteousness. You are not too much. You are simply too real for environments built on performance. So start noticing which spaces you leave feeling drained, not because you gave too much, but because others took without gratitude. Protect your energy from rooms that confuse your passion with arrogance, your clarity with ego, your warmth with manipulation. You can love people without living inside their projections. Remember this, Sagittarius. Your energy is sacred currency. Spend it where it multiplies, not where it's taxed. The right people will never ask you to shrink to make them feel tall. They will celebrate your light because it reminds them of their own. So the next time you sense that subtle tension, The kind that tells you your joy makes someone uncomfortable. Don't dim yourself. Smile gently, stand taller, and let your authenticity speak louder than their insecurities. You were not sent here to please. You were sent here to awaken. An awakening by nature disturbs the one still sleeping. Let them stir. You keep shining. Gate 3: The environments that starve your spirit. Sagittarius, have you ever noticed how your energy changes depending on where you are? There are places where your thoughts flow effortlessly, where your ideas bloom like wildflowers, and even silence feels alive. And then there are other places, gray, lifeless, stale, where time seems to thicken and your inner fire flickers out. You may walk into such a space and immediately feel your shoulders tighten, your mood drop, your mind cloud. You think it's just stress or fatigue, but it's something deeper. Spiritual starvation. You are a child of movement, of color, of meaning. Your sign is ruled by Jupiter, the cosmic expander, the philosopher, the adventurer. You thrive in spaces filled with curiosity, laughter, beauty, and life. But when you're confined to environments that lack soul, cold rooms, sterile offices, spaces without color, sound, or warmth, your vitality starts to decay. These places don't feed your light. They consume it. I once met a Sagittarius woman who worked for years in a cubicle surrounded by gray walls. Every day she'd return home feeling exhausted, though her job wasn't physically demanding. She told me she felt like her soul was slowly turning beige. It wasn't the work that drained her. It was the atmosphere. There was no art, no playfulness, no spark. Just routine, rules, and recycled air. It's strange, she said. I used to be so creative. Now I can't even finish a sentence in my journal. What she didn't realize was that her environment had become an energetic desert. Sagittarius, for you, dullness is poison. The absence of vibrancy kills your imagination faster than failure ever could. You are solar by spirit, a being who needs movement, stimulation, and inspiration to breathe. You're not made for gray. You're made for the hues of sunrise, for the pulse of music, for the texture of the world in all its wild imperfection. When you spend too long in environments stripped of personality, your fire begins to suffocate under monotony. You start mistaking numbness for peace and withdrawal for calm. This kind of spiritual starvation doesn't just affect your mood. It rewires your energy. When your surroundings don't nourish your soul, your motivation begins to fade. You lose your appetite for creation, your optimism dulls, and life starts to feel like maintenance instead of adventure. You begin living in grayscale, and slowly your body mirrors that energy. Your posture sags, your breathing shortens, and your spark, the unmistakable Sagittarian glow, dims. But this isn't just about decor or aesthetics. It's about resonance. Every space has a frequency, and your spirit is sensitive to it. You can't fake alignment with environments that were never designed for growth. The walls absorb your silence, the air thickens with repetition, and something inside you begins to whisper, I don't belong here anymore. That whisper is not rebellion, it's self-preservation. And here's the truth. You don't owe loyalty to lifeless spaces. You don't have to apologize for outgrowing the environments that once fit you. Expansion is your element. You're ruled by the horizon, the call to keep moving toward places that awaken your curiosity and renew your joy. When you linger in environments that contradict your nature, you slowly betray your essence. But when you choose color, light, and openness, even in small ways, you begin to breathe again. Start by reclaiming your space. Bring life into it. Add warmth, sound, texture. Hang art that makes you feel something. Open windows. Light candles. Play music. Speak laughter into the air. These are not indulgences. They are survival tools for your spirit. The world has taught you that practicality matters more than energy, but your body knows better. Your environment is not neutral. It's medicine or poison. Choose accordingly. You may not be able to change everything overnight. You may have obligations that keep you in certain spaces for a while longer. But you can still create oases within deserts. A corner filled with sunlight. A playlist that lifts your vibration. A moment of gratitude that shifts the frequency around you. When you do, you remind your spirit that it's still alive, still free, still capable of joy. Sagittarius, your gift to the world is aliveness. You are the sign that reminds humanity to seek meaning in every moment, to find the divine in the ordinary. But how can you do that if your own spaces have gone numb? This is your wake-up call to stop normalizing lifelessness. Stop calling sterile environments safe. They're not safe, they're suffocating. So pay attention to where your energy goes silent. If you consistently leave a place feeling drained, irritable, or uninspired, that's not coincidence, it's communication. The universe is using your fatigue as feedback. It's whispering, not here, not anymore. And when you finally listen, when you choose to inhabit spaces that reflect your vibrancy, your creativity will return like a flood. The colors will come back. The laughter will flow again. You'll realize you were never tired of life. You were just tired of living in places where life couldn't reach you. Gate 4. The environments that don't honor your worth. Sagittarius, one of the deepest wounds you've carried, often without realizing it, is being in spaces where your light is taken for granted. You give generously, you uplift others, you offer ideas that shift the air in the room, and somehow instead of gratitude you're met with silence. A faint nod. A dismissive thanks. Nothing more. For other signs, that might be a mild disappointment. For you, it's spiritual depletion. Because recognition, for Sagittarius, isn't about ego, it's about connection. It's how your soul knows it's contributing, that your warmth has reached someone. When your effort goes unacknowledged for too long, something sacred in you begins to close. You start to question, why should I give my all to people who don't see what I bring? You begin to ration your light, offer less, speak less, dream less. Until one day, you realize you've dimmed so gradually that you've forgotten what it felt like to shine. The danger of unappreciative environments isn't only in what they withhold, it's in what they teach you to expect. They condition you to believe that invisibility is normal, that silence is the price of humility. But it's not humility, it's neglect. You're not meant to beg for acknowledgement. You're meant to be surrounded by people who mirror your glow, who look at you and say, I see your fire, and it inspires me to find mine. There's another kind of space that drains you even deeper. Those dominated by toxic competition. The ones where every achievement becomes a threat to someone else, where support is replaced by subtle sabotage. You sense it in their forced smiles, in the way the air grows heavier after you share good news. These are not arenas of excellence, they're arenas of insecurity. And for a Sagittarius, whose natural instinct is to lift others while rising, such places are spiritually poisonous. You're a traveler of truth, not a warrior of ego. You thrive in mutual inspiration, not in silent battles of one-upmanship. In environments of toxic competition, you spend more time defending your energy than creating. Your light becomes armor when it should be guidance. The result? Exhaustion, not because you're weak, but because you're fighting invisible wars that shouldn't exist. Let's go deeper, Sagittarius. The most painful kind of energy drain doesn't come from the external. It comes from internalized comparison. Spaces that constantly measure you against irrelevant standards, that praise conformity over creativity, slowly convince you that authenticity is risky. You start shaping yourself to fit their mold, speaking like them, thinking like them, dreaming within their limits. And in doing so, you begin betraying the wild authenticity that defines you. This is why environments that idolize rules but ignore innovation suffocate you. You can follow structure, yes, but not at the expense of your soul. You were born to pioneer, not to repeat. To explore, not to obey. When you're forced into systems that punish originality, you start feeling like a caged wanderer, technically functioning but spiritually fading. The dull ache in your chest isn't laziness. It's the grief of a spirit denied movement. A Sagittarius without room to create is a bird without sky. You can survive in captivity, but you'll never feel alive there. The longer you stay, the more you forget that you were once capable of flight. And this forgetfulness is the greatest danger. Not the environment itself, but your slow acceptance of it. You tell yourself, it's not that bad, while your essence whispers, this isn't living. And yet, here's the miracle. The moment you leave these draining spaces, physically or energetically, your vitality begins to return almost immediately. Your mind clears. Your laughter comes back. You start remembering what it feels like to be inspired again. You realize it was never you who was broken. It was the energy around you that was incompatible with your frequency. I once met a Sagittarius who left a high-paying job where creativity was forbidden. Everyone told him he was crazy. He started freelancing, teaching music, and spending time outdoors. I make half the money now, he said. but I feel twice as alive. That's what happens when you honor your worth instead of negotiating it. When you stop trying to thrive where you're merely tolerated, the universe rewards your courage with alignment. Sagittarius, your exhaustion is not always a sign of weakness. It's evidence that your energy has been misplaced. You've been investing light in places that don't reflect it back. And now the divine is asking for a realignment, to pull your energy out of what drains you and reinvest it into what expands you. Start asking yourself the questions that matter. Does this environment allow me to express my ideas freely? Do I feel valued for who I am, or only for what I produce? Am I celebrated or merely used? Does this place feed my curiosity or silence it? Do I feel alive here? Or am I just enduring? The answers will tell you everything. You already know which spaces are shrinking you. You've felt it in your fatigue, your irritability, your sudden loss of enthusiasm. These are not mood swings, they're messages. Your intuition has been whispering. Not this. Not here. And here's the truth. Yes, leaving such places will require courage. It might mean temporary uncertainty. It might mean being misunderstood by those who prefer your smaller self. But what's the alternative? Staying until your light fades completely? Sagittarius, you've never been built for dimness. The discomfort of outgrowing your environment is temporary. The regret of staying small lasts a lifetime. You are meant to inhabit spaces that feed your fire, where your laughter echoes freely, your ideas find oxygen, and your generosity is reciprocated. These spaces exist. They're waiting for you. But first, you must stop giving your sacred energy to those that only consume it. Because when you finally do, when you choose vibrancy over obligation, you'll remember who you are. The cosmic explorer, the eternal optimist, the living flame that cannot be contained. So listen closely, Sagittarius. Your fatigue is not the problem. It's the symptom of misplacement. The cure isn't rest. It's relocation. Move your energy where it can breathe, and watch yourself return to life. Conclusion: reclaiming the flame. Sagittarius, your exhaustion was never proof of weakness. It was proof of misalignment. You were trying to shine in places built to absorb your light. You kept showing up, believing that if you were just more patient, more humble, more grateful, things would shift. But the truth is simple. No matter how radiant the sun is, it cannot make a desert bloom if the soil refuses to receive it. You've spent years trying to make yourself smaller for the comfort of others, lowering your voice, dimming your joy, editing your truth. Yet deep down, a part of you has always resisted. That quiet rebellion in your heart wasn't defiance. It was guidance. It was your soul saying, "This isn't where you belong." Every headache, every drained evening, every flicker of restlessness was divine communication in disguise. Now the message is clear. It's time to choose vitality over familiarity, to stop mistaking fatigue for maturity, and peace for numbness. Your energy is your compass, Sagittarius. When it dims, something is wrong. When it expands, you're home. The spaces that honor your authenticity will never require your exhaustion as proof of loyalty. You are meant to feel alive, to wake up eager, to walk into rooms that spark inspiration, not drain it. And you will, because once awareness arrives, you cannot unknow it. You will no longer tolerate lifeless spaces or conditional belonging. You will create and seek the places that reflect your light back to you. So breathe deeply. Lift your head. Whisper softly to yourself, "I deserve to exist where my energy is nourished, not consumed." Say it until your body believes it. The moment you do, your world will begin to rearrange itself around that truth. If this message touched something inside you, like, share, and subscribe, not as routine but as ritual. A vow to yourself that you will no longer live in places that steal your radiance. You were born to explore, to create, to expand. The right places are waiting. And they're filled with light, your kind of light.